We are live. We are live. Hope everybody's having a good night tonight. We're waiting on our special guests. We got Mark Richardson.
Hi, buddy.
Michael said he shared. Appreciate you sharing, Michael. Liz says, hey guys. Hey Liz. Hope everybody's doing good. We're waiting on Michael Berryman to come in. He's supposed to be with us tonight. He is having a little technical difficulties, and hopefully he gets those worked out and joined in with us soon. You know, what have you been up to this week, Mark?
Moving. I've moved from one location to the next. So I just finished moving yesterday.
I hate moving.
Oh, I do too. It's a pain in the ass.
You know, I think moving is good if I have somebody do it for me, but I don't like people touching my stuff, so I tend to want to pack it and all myself. You know. Lewis says, hey guys. Hey Lewis.
What's up, Lewis?
Liz says she loved the cup.
Huh.
You know, are you a fan of the original Hills Have Eyes?
Yeah, I like the original better than the remake. The remake was there was some scenes in it that was more disturbing than the original. And the remake's good, super intense. The original is a little more easier to stomach. That's all.
The remake I kind of like because it's the director for one of my favorite horror movies,
Hot Tension.
I love that movie. That was like an awesome freaking movie.
I did Piranha 3D with that guy, and he was a partier that doesn't speak any English. Big Planet of the Apes fan. There was a couple of nights that he got to set late with a black eye because he'd go out partying in Lake Havasu and getting punches. He was feisty. I didn't kick ass on Piranha 3D as much as I wish I did. Such a big. We were overwhelmed. We had, at one time, probably about 300 extras out on a lake. Everybody had a prop. I was overwhelmed on that show. We were doing 6-day weeks.
How did he direct the actors if he didn't speak any English?
He had an interpreter. He had his partner with him would interpret everything.
That's really interesting.
Yeah, he's a super cool guy. I don't know. One night we'll talk about F ups. I effed up. Luckily, the scene we had broke for lunch and we were underwater cameras and I screwed up, but and the AD was kind of a dick and he goes, well, you're gonna have to tell. It was a continuity thing. You're gonna have to go tell them that you screwed up. And I go, okay. And I knocked on his door and I go, listen, I screwed up. And he was like in shock at first because I said, because we had to reshoot the scene. And but then he realized we had broke for lunch and all the cameras were set up, so we shot it after that. But I think because I kind of had a good relationship with the cat, but after that it was kind of iffy because I did screw up.
Well, we have a couple people weighing in. Michael says he likes the original for sure. I like the original too. Maeve, hey Maeve, she says she likes the original. Scott says,
hey Scott.
Hey Scott.
Hi.
Chris says, how have you guys been doing? We've been doing good. I hope you've been doing good, Chris. And Maeve says, do you think the 3D remakes are only made for a certain audience because it's made for theaters? That's
I'm sorry. When it came out on DVD, you could get it in 3D or, not. It's just that, every once in a while there's those scenes where going, hey, Bob, you want a drink? That's kind of weird when you're watching it not in 3D. But yeah, especially when you watch movies like House of Wax, the classic ones on, your TV that's not in 3D. I enjoy it a little bit more because you could tell what was shot for 3D and it really doesn't work when it's not 3D.
Yeah. For those of y'all guys tuned in, we got Michael Berryman scheduled to join us in at some point during the show.
Legendary.
He one of my favorite actors. Be it in The Hills Have Eyes, that movie was just scary. His manager's working with him. He's having some technical difficulties, so we do hope he's going to come on. But if he can't come on, we're still going to talk horror and
Yep.
hang out. So, staying on the topic of The Hills Have Eyes, if you look at the original one, it was way ahead of its time. I mean, you had people because still the whole nuclear war thing was a threat, and the fact that we tested in America with these nuclear weapons, and there's these isolated places out there in the desert.
It's Wes Craven at his best. This is something obviously Wes Craven was thinking. What if there was people out there when they were dropping these bombs, just like a Nightmare on Elm Street? This is he comes up with these concepts from news articles and works off that. But yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And when they go out there and they have those radios, it kind of had a little bit of humor in it watching it again, but it had enough of scare in it. And those dogs, I mean, you shot with the projects that's probably use animals and all. And the first thing, like as a producer, when people throw me projects, the first two questions I ask them, I say, hey, is it kids or pets in it? Because animals are very hard to work with. And the fact that he was able to pull those scenes off with those dogs throughout the large majority of the movie. I mean, usually in a horror movie, or any movie really, when the pet gets killed right away, that's usually because it's so expensive to shoot with the animals on set.
Yeah.
And that was something I think that people don't, when you're watching it, people don't realize just how crazy that is.
Back in the day when I was doing props, a lot of the stuff on the low budget films, I did all the animal wrangling because we didn't have an animal wrangler. And so I would do tarantulas and snakes. I have a lot of snake stories where they went awry because I'm a prop guy that gets shoved over that, and stuck in there. One of the scenes, and this was on a show called, it was Power Rangers. It might have been VR Troopers, but they wanted to put a tarantula on a cobweb and have it in the middle of the scene. Well, tarantulas don't have cobwebs, and so they have this fake cobweb, and they have this tarantula on it. And the tarantula he was all pissed off. And so they asked me to bring it off set. And so I usually would use an air can and spray the air can on the tarantula's butt and put my hand out, and it would crawl on my hand and I'd put it away. And he was pissed off. Like when I went to put my hand down, he raised up. And I was like, let's wait. And he goes, well, we need him off set. We need him off set. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I hit him with the air, and that thing just lunged on my hand. So he's got his fangs in my hand, and my assistant's there, and he goes to spray his butt, and I'm like, don't spray his butt, don't spray his butt. And what I did is I had a bucket of water, and I slowly dropped my hand in the bucket of water, and when it got its feet wet, it lifted up, and then I put it in the cage. But and at least I was smart enough to know what kind of tarantula it was. It was a rose spider. It has a bee sting, but obviously the fangs don't come out or something like that. I mean, I had a little swelling, but it wasn't a big deal. But I just remember this tarantula just staring at me with its fang, and like when I'd go in closer, he'd go a little deeper with the fangs. He was pissed off, man. I'm glad it was me and not an actor. I did have a kid once that had a snake in his hand. Every time he would do his lines, he would squeeze the snake, and you see the snake freaking out. And I go, do not squeeze that snake, he'll bite you. And sure enough, right on camera, he squeezes a snake, and snake weasels his way out and bites him in the hand. And his mother freaks out. And this was like VR Troopers, and I was on another show, and the prop master was afraid of snakes, so he asked if I could help him, and I was just helping out. I didn't buy the snake. I asked if I want to know what kind it was. It was a garden snake, and it wasn't poisonous, but it still had a bite to it. And the kid had a bite in his hand, but his mother's like screaming at me. The AD's screaming at me. And I was like, and I'm trying to act like I'm a professional animal wrangler, but I was just next door in my prop room, and the prop guy came and got me.
Hey, Mark, we got our special guest, Mr.
Oh, let's
Berryman.
go.
What's going on, Michael? How you doing tonight? Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, we were just talking about The Hills Have Eyes, and one of the things that I was saying is, it amazes me how y'all were able to work in that project with all those dogs and how difficult it must have been working with animals.
Well, the Hills Have Eyes, we had the two German Shepherds. One was actually the bionic dog. That was the male. That was the one that was called Beast. And then the other one was its mate. Um, I had I'd worked with dogs for my whole life. I actually was private guard for Bob Dylan for 2 years at his home in Malibu. And I had a German Shepherd Coyote, which is actually wolf. So that would be a Canis lupus latrans. That would be a Coy Shepherd, they would call him.
Wow.
And so I've worked with canines a lot. I actually worked with a Bengal tiger when I did the Beastmaster.
Wow.
That was Sheba. And I actually knew that tiger from the years I lived at a wolf sanctuary near Big Bear in Southern California. And the animal trainers for the tiger from Beastmaster she was actually the Exxon tiger. So we would go there on occasion, and we got to know that animal also. So working with animals has always been pretty easy for me. I learned to also you spend time with the animal handlers and the animal you're working with, and you don't hang out during the course of the day with a lot of other people. In other words, you let the animal get familiar with you, and that way when you're working in a scene, it's safe on two reasons. One, you don't get bit, and number two, you get the shot that you're looking for. That's called a safety also.
Yeah, how was it? Because you said you lived on a reserve with wolves and stuff. How was that?
Well, there was a rescue. It's called Wolf Mountain Sanctuary. They have a website. Some people sometimes think certain exotic animals make good pets. It's not a good idea. Uh, so a lot of the wolves that we had, well, Tanya had, the owner, were rescues, ones that people had illegally, and then when the Fish and Game or Animal Control got involved because they didn't have the proper licensing or men in which to take care of the animal. You have to find them a sanctuary, or else they put them down, which
Horrible.
means they kill them. They don't put them to sleep. That was what we did there. We actually had President Gerald Ford visit us one day. There was a black Lincoln black town car at the gate, and I noticed two men in black were there, and I had seen that behavior before when I was a young boy. My father was a world famous neurologist, and he had been a Navy surgeon attached to the Marines during World War II. That being said, he was one of the top neurologists in the entire Western Hemisphere. So when Bobby and John Robert Kennedy were murdered, they came to our house to take my father to, see if there's any way you could, help someone who's been shot in the head. The answer was no, of course. So I saw the same scenario play out, meaning men in black in a sedan, and very polite and very professional, and off you go. So I went to the gate and I asked the gentleman. I said, "Well, how can I help you?" And they said, "Well, the president would like to see the wolves." And I said, so I was messing with him a little bit. I go, "So which president is that?" And he goes, "President of the United States." I go, "Oh, okay, yeah, I'm sure we can accommodate here comes the owner now. I'll introduce you. And um, yeah, but before you come in the gate, could I see some identification, please? And I did that on purpose because number one, I was just because to mess with them. And you know, they got a little bit of an attitude, a polite attitude, very professional. And it was obvious who they were. And I said, I'm just goofing with you, gentlemen. Sure enough, they came in the property, and I knew that they would have a request. So I asked them. I said, I think I know what your request will be. Your first request from us. And there's two guys, and he goes, what would that be? And I go, you want to secure the property here, and you want all of our guns in the trunk of your car. And he goes, that'll work just fine. Wow. So we did, they did, and then a helicopter, Air Force 2, landed on a little cement pad where there used to be a house across the entrance to the sanctuary. It's a pretty remote area in the desert. And sure enough, there was Gerald Ford, and he got out of the helicopter. We showed him around. He hung out for a while.
Did he trip at any time? I remember he used to trip all the time.
No, he didn't actually. But when we were in the house after we had let him see the wolves, and actually one that was safe enough and calm enough to actually, you know, pet, so to speak. Tanya was showing pictures from her various newspaper articles and what have you, and I mentioned to Mr. Ford, I said, President Ford, I said, Mr. President, and he goes, call me Gerald. And I go, and the Secret Service guys, you know, they stood the whole time. They weren't sitting down. They were just doing their thing, hanging out in the room, in the living room. And I go, yes, of course, Mr. President. I noticed that the press corps is giving you a rough time. And eyes went up a little bit on the Secret Service agents, and Ford goes, what do you mean? I said, well, when you got out of Air Force 2, sir, I did not see you bump your head. And the two Secret Service agents were, you know, they almost busted a gut there. They kind of like, and Ford, he laughed. He said, that's actually pretty funny. Anyway, he was a really nice guy, and it was a real treat to be exposed to be around exotic animals. I actually got to work with the Bengal tiger on Beastmaster when the opening sequence is showing Mark Singer running across the dry lake bed with the tiger. I was over by the water tanker truck. It was a hot day in the sun, in the desert, and tigers love water, and so they have sprinklers. So I'm sitting under a sprinkler, and I purposely wore my swimming trunks under my wardrobe, which was robes, a Bedouin outfit, and of course the animal handler Nikki was there with the tiger Sheba, and they knew that I was there, and she, the cat, the tiger actually saw me. So when they finished the scene of him running to a certain spot, she continued to run into the shade where I was, and I called her name, and then she literally kind of threw herself sideways into my lap. So I got rolling around on my lap and my arms around her chest, and she took a paw and a paw and licked my chin all the time while she was purring. Well, when you have about a 500-pound purring kitty, it echoes all the way through you. It was a very zen moment. It was very, very cool.
Wow.
So I wanted to be a veterinarian when I was much younger, but it didn't work out that way. So I have an affinity for animals, and especially the exotics, and the great beasts deserve to be not extinct. Trophy hunting should be banned forever, and people that kill the best breeding stock and cut their heads off and stick them on a wall, I think are hideous excuses for humans, because it's selfish behavior. It causes extinction. of course, there's good humans and there's not good humans, and I tend to call out the not good humans, and if they don't like it, too freaking bad.
I don't blame you. I agree with you. Hunting should be. I mean, I don't know. I'm just not an advocate for hunting anything except for fellow humans. If you're gonna hunt something, hunt each other.
Well, I hear we taste good, but I don't know.
Dennis, one of our viewers, wants to know what was it like working on Cut and Run.
Well, Cut and Run, for any viewer that's not aware, is a movie by Ruggero Deodato, an Italian director, and we filmed Cut and Run in the Amazon rainforest. Actually, we were in Guyana, and got to work with my dear friend Richard Lynch, Willie Ames, and Elisa Blount, and the rest of the gang. It was very, very exciting being in the rainforest. We were in an area where the Caroni River, it's a brown river, and it has a lot of silt from runoff, and it meets the Orinoco River, which is very clear blue water. Around that intersection in the jungle, which is very remote, we were in dugout canoes going to different locations, and a lot of times just sitting and waiting for the rain to stop. It would rain so hard you couldn't see, a foot in front of you on occasion. But I like working with Ruggero. He's very camera savvy. He knows how to tell a story. The characters are always that I've played with him as my director have always been very substantial roles. Very well-defined character, which I appreciate. I did have an issue with the, well, you have to take malaria pills, which are tough on your liver, but it was beautiful and exotic and dangerous. I mean, the spiders were the size of your head. There were piranha, of course, which we never ran into, but we were in the Brown River. Well, honestly, we were in a river where there could have been electric eels, which made me nervous after the fact that I was made aware of that.
We have Chris here asking, he wants to know, have you heard from Motley Crue lately?
No, I haven't heard from the boys in a long time. The last time I had contact with Motley Crue was when I got a call from my agent, saying, this is years ago, saying that Vince Neil was opening up a little restaurant shop. It just it had a Harley and some chain link and some. It was like a little movie set. Anyway, it was a little tiny restaurant in the casino called Circus. So to have the grand opening, they invited me out, and we did a little, some photo op stuff, and had some fun. That's the last time I saw them. But
were you dressed as the principal from Smoking in the Boys Room?
No, for that I don't believe I was. I just kind of went out and just wore my Hard Rock Cafe jacket and the usual. But I found the crew to be just a lot of fun to work with. Very professional. We worked hard when we did Smoking in the Boys Room and Home Sweet Home.
Video is still hysterical. I love it.
It's a real strong video. Tommy was having a blast because they cut the wig to make it look even worse. We had a lot of fun. I did have the first video, Smoking in the Boys Room. I had an agent who was kind of an older agent, been around the business for a long time, and he had a little Earl Flynn mustache, gray hair, and he goes, "Hey, I got you a gig, kid. It's a band, and it's called Motley Crue." And I go, "Oh, okay, maybe it's Motley Crue." And he goes, "Okay, it can be that. You go have fun. Here's the address." And so I called a friend of mine, and I said, "If you don't mind, you want to come on the set with Motley Crue to do this video? And I'm sure we're going to be partying, and you can be my designated driver." And he said, sure. And he's a reporter for horror magazines and stuff. And we had a good time. And we had tubs full of ice and Jack Daniels and lots of Corona beer and some. And we worked real hard that day. Made a real funny video. And um, it was very popular on MTV for a long time. By request, it was one of the most requested videos. And at the end, when I wiggle my ears, it was on for such a long time that they actually cut the ear wiggle out.
Yeah, it's amazing.
And people phoned in and complained. It could have been on for maybe, I don't know, 9 months or so. And they said, hey, play the video all the way to the very end. I like the ear wiggle. And I had heard this rumor, but I thought, yeah, sure, that really happened. And then one day I had to go to a sound recording lab and do some dialogue cleaning up. It's called an ADR session, audio digital recording session. And while we were getting set up to clean up some of the dialogue on this film, the guy handed me a piece of paper, which was a worksheet from when he was at work the day he had to put the ear wiggle back in. And so it had a whole list of things for him to do. And then, whatever number the ear wiggle was, it said, Motley Crue, Smoking in the Boys' Room, ear wiggle, reinsert 6 seconds. So I've kept that in my scrapbook because it was so unique and bizarre. But I found the guys to be absolutely straight up, honest, hardworking, and just a lot of fun. And when we did Home Sweet Home, we had four different locations on that, and it's just a good video. Always
great song.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of the Crue. I like the guys individually. They're very nice. And I kept in touch with Mick for quite a while when he was having, I don't know if he had surgery on his arm, but he was having issues with his hand. And his ability to continue to play the guitar got better over time. But, they're big stars, and they were just really down to earth and treated me just like one of the guys. So it was quite a treat. I had fun.
Michael, you're one of the most intense, creepiest character icon in horror, but your comedy is phenomenal. Have you ever thought about, like, I'd love to see you and Bill Moseley doing a road picture or something like that. You guys would be hysterical.
I would love that. I would love to be back in front of the camera. Who knows when that'll happen? But yeah, Bill is a pretty sharp guy. I think he went to Yale, and he's got a quick creative mind, and he's a lot of fun. I've known him for forever. That would be fun.
I'd love that.
Now, we got a couple of people are asking about what was it like, Michael, working on Weird Science, being that badass biker riding in there?
Well, the house, the interiors, all the stuff that we filmed was they built a house inside a sound stage. So when the gal who's playing the piano gets sucked up through the chimney and then she's dropped into the pond, that was all indoors. Yeah, they built an entire house inside a sound stage. The exteriors where they're drive up in the car for grandma and whatever. That's obviously a location, but it was a big production. Robert Downey was obviously super talented. Everything he had done all the way from Parenthood just showed his genius. It's been a real treat to watch him grow over all these years, and he's just such a natural talent. I have bumped into Kelly. I haven't seen her in a long time, but the brother Chet, that was Bill Paxton. He's sorely missed. Just a brilliant guy. I mean, the cast was phenomenal. Um,
Oh shit.
I remember talking to Bill at a show one time, and I was making a reference to True Lies, where he has a scene with Schwarzenegger and Roseanne Barr's ex-husband. Anyway, he was trying to sell the Corvette, and um, he he, uh, uh, he was talking to me, and I told him, I said, "It's so good to see you. You've always been my favorite whiner." And he goes, "What do you mean?" I go, "Well, in True Lies, I mean, you get pretty flipped out when you know uh, they're doing the flashbangs and tearing up your trailer, um, and in Aliens, of
Yeah,
course,
hell yeah.
you're pretty much a whiner there." And we had a good laugh over it. He had a good sense of humor. But it's a classic movie, and um, John Hughes just had a knack for telling stories and having a pulse on youth. He made it so easy. It was we worked hard, long days, but um, when you're around real talented people that are putting everything they have into it, and a director and a production crew that are well-oiled machine, and they've done their homework, it makes everybody's job much easier, and it frees up the creative um, opportunity to get a little magic, which is what we had.
Well, the fact that they use you from Hills Have Eyes and Vernon Wells from Mad Max, two iconic films, it was such a shock. I remember seeing that when I was a kid and being a huge fan of both of those films and just being blown away. No, they've never done anything like that since then, and it was just magical because those two scenes are so iconic, and I loved it. I loved that so much. It was the best for me, the best part in the whole movie.
It was designed to be a challenge, for the boys to be heroes, and it worked out really well. Vernon is terrific. Um, Again, it turns into an extended family situation when we work overtime after we've been doing this for 40 years, and it's always a treat to look at the call sheet and see who's going to be at work. Get caught up on life and family and how your friends are doing. So yeah.
Now, I've always wanted to know when I was watching you and Devil's Rejects, that whole chicken fucker scene. You look mad as could be. I know you're a heck of an actor, but what's this? There's got to be a story behind that because you look like you was really ready to slap that guy.
Yes.
I knew it.
What had happened was, well, I was acting, yes, but I had to be angry for the character and what is said to him. And when you shoot a scene, the camera's in front of the people that are talking, and then the camera moves to the other side to catch somebody who's doing the speaking. It's called a reverse. So we did the reverse where Ken Forey and I are facing this guy who's selling chickens, and he was I don't know if he was a comedian or a part-time comedian or whatever, but he was pretty happy that he was getting a single one shot or a single, and he just started ad-libbing. He started adding more words and kind of expanding on it. And normally when you have dialogue, you do the dialogue that is written. It's written for a reason. And then if you want to ad lib, usually it's most professional to let your director know what you're going to do, and then or else during a rehearsal, give him a heads up. Well, he just went ahead and started going off. So, Ken and I are just standing there. We had lines, and there's nothing for us to do except stand there and watch him go off. So I got, as a professional, I got a little pissed off because he was, going off script. So I said, okay, well, if this is a scene, and what would Cleavon do? And I said, well, okay. So I just took the being upset, and I said, okay, just run with it. I'm angry, and then feed it, build it, because he had set the scene up to a certain point where I had to match what it was he was implying, and also turn it into a threatening situation. It's humorous, but Pluto is actually serious when he says, "Yeah, maybe I'll cut up his liver," and I think I said add some grilled onions, and I gave Ken something to react to, and he goes, "Yeah, grilled onions," So and then after the scene, I pulled the guy aside politely but firmly, and I just said, "Hey, look, the next time you pull bullshit like this, it's nice to let your director know first, or let your other actors in the scene know that you're going to do this, or not, whatever. But you might want to keep your day job."
That's wonderful.
The whole
You deserved it.
that was probably one of the most epic lines in a while.
But it worked and it played, so no harm, no foul.
Yep.
Maybe.
Now, do you have any projects? I know the whole industry thing's been crazy lately. Do you have anything that's in the can that's getting ready to come out?
No, I don't. Everything is dead in the water. There is nothing. I know that they're talking about various productions where if you were going to do a film, for instance, you would have your cast and your crew and everybody sequestered for at least 2 weeks in the same location and never go out and intermingle with anybody else, get tested every day, and then that way, if you have if you're talking to somebody in a master shot where they're or in a shot where you're in a close proximity with somebody and they're breathing on you, well, you don't want to die. You don't want to go to the emergency room. And this is really serious business. I come from a medical family and doctors and nurses. And the bottom line is not wearing a mask is so idiotic and selfish and so self-centered, because it's to protect other people. So that just, when I see people doing what they're doing, and that, yes, and that includes Trump. What a useless.
It cracks me up that people in this horror community are bitching about wearing a mask, and they have these masks that are it's an opportunity to walk around with a mask on. I love it.
Well, have fun with it, but do it. Do it. So no, production is dead. There's nothing going on.
Yeah, I do weapons and props. I worked on Devil's Rejects. I did the Firefly shootout and stuff like that.
Oh, that was brilliant, by the way. One of my the camera work and everything on that's one of my favorite scenes.
I loved it. I was working on a show called The Old Boy with Jeff Bridges when it all just shut off. So I'm basically holding up signs out on the freeway saying we'll prop for food right now. So I'm looking for work.
Yeah, I've got I've got hopes that someday we'll get back into it. There might not be any production for maybe another year. I mean, well, I'm just being straight up and honest. I'm originally from Santa Monica. We live in a remote area in Florida right now. We've got like 3 acres and a pool. So, but there's no income. There's no work. Yeah, I'm not happy with how these things have been handled, because millions of people are being harmed because certain people that just because you raise your hand and take an oath and say you're going to do something, well, and then you don't. I'm sorry, you should just go away. Walk out of the White House and go away, because you're not doing any good whatsoever. If people can't see that, then maybe they watch too much Fox News. Not a fan of Fox News. I had a good friend whose father was an executive at Fox when they started up their news program. And the bottom line is, this is not political. It's just a fact. It's knee jerk. It's knee jerk Three Stooges news. It's lies and deceit and bullshit agenda. If people don't like it, too bad. But if you can't see the truth, then there's a problem, a serious problem. So I don't know what to say other than it's an embarrassment and shameful to see. Yeah, we're number one, all right, in death and incompetence, and our country's been turned into an embarrassment, and we know why. And there's such a thing as science. I mean, Fauci. I mean, come on, he served what 6 presidents, I believe. You know, oh yeah, oh he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah. Well, why don't you go to a rally then, get it over with, so we don't have to deal with people, you know, that are causing death because they're so selfish and they won't even protect their fellow brothers and sisters by wearing a freaking mask. You know, so yeah.
It's painful times.
Well, it's painful, but it's unnecessary.
Are you still working on a book?
Yes, I'm doing the final rewrite now. I'm my autobiography, true story. Everything in there is 100% factual.
I'm really looking forward to that. I never heard the story. I just know it happened. You were at a 31 Flavors and you ran into Rod Serling.
Yes, that's correct.
Oh my God!
I think. Well, it was right about the time when Night Gallery was starting. I forget what year it was. I was either home from. Well, I grew up in Santa Monica, and Brentwood was like about 3 blocks from where our house was. So there was the 31 Flavors, and one of my brothers and I decided to go to 31 Flavors, and we went, and it was at night, and there was Rod Serling getting his ice cream, and so I told my brother, I said, "Hey, that's Rod Serling." So he starts doing the music, you know, do 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 do.
Oh my God!
You know, loud enough for him to hear, and Rod gives the guy like, you know, some money. He says, keep the change." Grabs his ice cream, and he runs out the door. And it's just me and my brother and Mr. Serling. So we follow him out to the car where his driver is waiting, and we said, "Hey, you know, we're kind of goofing around here, but we know who you are. We just really like the work that you do. Thank you." And he goes, "Thank me for what?" And I was a little nervous. I go, "Oh yeah, you have a great brain." What do you mean? I go, "No, what I mean is you tell good stories." And then he said, "You know, well, which ones?" And so we shared a couple episodic themes, like the one with the henpecked husband that liked to read books and thankful. And so he talked to us for about 10-15 minutes, and then he said, "Well, I have makeup on, as you can tell. I just got through working on my new show. Hope you like it. It's called The Night Gallery." And
wow,
off he went, drove up, and taillights dissolved into the fog. It was
unbelievable.
Then we whistled the theme song all the way home from there. You know, but
fantastic.
Yeah, he was an interesting fella.
Have you seen any of the reboots that they've been doing with the Twilight Zone, what CBS has?
No, I think I've caught just a few minutes here and there. There's so much to tune into. I don't really have an opinion of it. I just, you know, I mean, imitation is flattery. I always liked his writing and the way the stories are. I would imagine they're, you know, in the same vein as the original. Haven't really watched any.
I was watching them. I think the Twilight Zone is a really, really tough show because every episode was like had that aha moment, and to have to try to pull that off and match that is just a challenge. And
it would be. Yeah, it would be. But I guess they have, you know, if you have good writers, you know, that doesn't hurt.
One of the things that I've been telling horror fans that they need to start demanding from Netflix and Amazon and CBS and these big time streaming services is that we need to see more of our horror icons like Michael Berryman in
I agree.
Hell yeah,
it's like that.
You definitely should be on the new Creep Show and stuff like that.
Twilight Zone calling you.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of horror. I grew up watching the Universal, you know, great monsters, so to speak. But the concept of horror, sci-fi and horror, I like the combination very much. But I remember being on the Morton Downey Jr. show, and they were we had a panel, and they were asking about, well, if if you're in a horror film and you do something bad and then somebody copycats it, does that make you criminally liable? You know, it's a bit of a stretch, but it started the conversation. The answer, of course, is no. But if I explained that, you know, if the hero has to rise up to the occasion of the situation, meaning, you know, if the monster is going to, you know, pull a hangnail off your foot, that's not much of a threat. But if they're going to, you know, decapitate you or, you know, chop you up into sushi, well, you know, that's a pretty serious threat. So, you know, at what point does the hero have to, rescue or help others or themselves get out of a situation, or you know, fight the good fight? Well, there's your challenge. That's your classic storytelling. So I like to play my characters, you know, to the raw bone. But there are certain scenes and types of roles that I would refuse and would not comply with. I actually had a film in, I think it was Illinois. My travel day was. They were filming nights, so I got in probably around 8:30 the evening before my day one of work. And as you know, Mark, your travel day is your travel day. You get paid for that, and then you.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and they don't work you on that day. So when I arrived, they said, "Hey, would you want to swing by the set and say hi to your director and your cast members?" I go, "Sure." So we did that, and then I have my bags and I want to go check into the hotel. So, you know, been a long day. And the director goes, "Oh, there's that scene where you say 'come to daddy' to some gals in front of you," and in the original scene it was, you know, frontal drop trowel. And there's no way in hell we're going to do it that way. We can do it classy where it's after the fact, and the camera's behind me. I see. And there's no missing trowels. And what you do is just do a little tug on the belt line and step aside. Then there is, so it's obvious what has happened. And then there's your actress, and they can, you know, emote and they can act. And because implied violence most often is more frightening.
Hell yeah.
And it goes to a deeper level. It seeps in and creeps you the hell out. That's why. Even the Exorcist, when she wasn't, I know Linda, she's a sweetie, we're good friends. Just the ambiance in the room, as aside from the spewing of the pea soup, etc., those scenes, it just is terrifying. So when we had that discussion, it was when I was in California, and I tape recorded the conversation with the director and the producer and myself. And I told them that I had recorded this. So when I was there with the actress, they actually wanted to shoot that scene that night. And I go, "No, this is my travel night. You're not going to work." And number two, I said, "Let's just clear the set and have a conversation." The actress and me and the producer and director. So they cleared the set, and I said, "Now, here's how it works." And I go, "Honey, this is probably your first movie, I imagine." She goes, "Yes." He says, "Oh, I'll do what they want because I'm." I go, No. We have a script, and there's also a phone number right here. Is a copy of the phone number. This is for the your union, for your 24-hour hotline in case of emergencies. Now, I consider this almost an emergency because you don't pull a switch like this on someone. So I took out my tape recorder and I said, "Listen to this," and I played the conversation what I had to previously explained. And she goes, "Oh wow, well that's a good way to go with the camera like that." And then the director got all pissy and go, "Well, if you're going to be a problem," I says, "say whatever you want. Take me to my hotel. I'll check in. We can have a conversation in the morning. When you wrap, you know, we'll have coffee." So we wrapped, have coffee, came back, and they go, "Oh, well, we're just going to send you home." I said, "All right. Then before I get on the plane, sir, then I expect to have a check paid in full for my entire
Hell
contract."
yeah.
Because that's the way it works. This is a union contract, and you're in breach of contract. And I left, and I did. And then one of the crew members called me up when they wrapped, and they go, "Yeah, they got someone to replace you," and they did it the original way. They took her out, wined her, and dined her, and you know, it's she got to do an embarrassing scene, and the movie never went anywhere. And point is, you don't let people take advantage of you. It's just like for stunts. I've done stunts with guns and whatnot. I I was doing a movie with
The Crow.
well, yeah,
Sorry.
um, yeah. That's a pretty sensitive subject for me. Brandon and I were very, very close. I still keep in touch with Rochelle. That's what happens when you have legislators and people that don't like unions. They if you want in Wilmington, if it's a right to work state, that's just illegal.
I'm a union prop, weapons armor. So I
You know how that
I get
happened.
so angry at that stuff.
Oh, I was furious because when Brandon got shot, I got a phone call, and it was from a reporter. Got my private number, and he says, "Hey, I have a call sheet. There were 3 Michaels. One of the Michaels killed Brandon. Did you kill Brandon?" I mean, that's I was pretty upset. So when you have a right to work, as you know, what happened at the Crow, after so many weeks of production, hiring a union rep who's a armor, and then after so many weeks, they could hire a local guy, and they hired a local guy, and he was not as competent or full. Uh, I'm sorry, a blank or well, I don't know what you've heard, but there was a close-up shot of the revolver where you see the ends of the bullets. You see the bullet tips. Those were shaved off. Anything that goes above the brass. I was reloading and had an NRA card when I was 12 years old. So when you're reloading, if you can take a bullet and if you have the casing plugged and filled with just an inert material, and then you glue the bullet tip, it looks like a complete bullet. They had no dummy rounds. So the dummy rounds were in the revolver. They have a camera facing forward so you can see the barrel. You don't see it in the movie. And then when they went to eject and to put in the full charge blanks, that tip stayed in one of the cylinders. And ironically, that was the one that fired and shot our friend. So I'm really, really strict when it comes to firearms. I was working with Lee Van Cleef and David Carradine on Fred Olin Ray movie years ago in L.A., Chinatown, Armed Response. And there's a scene where I have a rifle and it's at night. I'm shooting up the street, and a guy comes up from the side of the street and shoots me in the shoulder. Well, it was a wide shot with dolly tracking. So as I'm moving toward the middle of the intersection, the starting point for the actor with the rifle, they waved him out of my line of sight. And I explained in the beginning, I said, when we set up to do the shot, first of all, we check everybody's weapon. And I know you don't have a round in your pocket. You're not going to switch a clip on me, but I want to see you.
Hell yes.
All the time. If you go out of my line of sight, I'm going to yell cut. And so that's exactly what happened. I mean, the guy was still in the frame. So as they were panning, he would have been in the frame. He wanted to come in until a certain point. So of course, yes, he had to comply and go farther down the alley. Well, bingo, I couldn't see him for just a second. And then they gave him his signal. Now he's coming toward me with a weapon. And I know it's only been like a few seconds, but my natural instincts kicked in. I yelled, and I just ran toward him, closed the gap, and disarmed him and took him down to the ground, and then, helped him get back up off the ground and said, "I'm sorry," but then the director's going, "What's going on?" I says, "I told you, if I don't, if there is 2 seconds where I don't see his weapon after I've already checked it for safety, then the scene stops and we replay." And they go, and they somebody said, "Oh, you're being a little OCD, Mike." And I said, "No, you go ask David Hexam if that was OCD. I'm sorry, but they're not toys. And if you can be a big star, and if you're a weapons handler, if you're an armorer, you take that weapon away from. I don't care if it's Jack Nicholson. You take that weapon away because you are the director. Anytime you're doing those scenes, and people need to be safe. I'm a safety advocate, and I make no apologies about it. And I like coming home and having everything still work. So yeah.
Michael, I did weapons on Queen of the South, and number 2 actor was not safe with a gun. And I took it away from him, called my boss saying, good chance you're going to need another weapons guy on set. Went to the AD and said, he's going to have a replica. You're going to have to CGI him firing. He's not safe. And Fox supported me. And the actors to this day cannot have a blank firing weapon.
Well done, sir. Yeah. They're not, it's not play. It's not play at all.
Frightening to me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been drawn down just living in the street when I was trying to get going after I left college and didn't have a degree. I was trying to make ends meet and got into this silly business. And there are times we're so lean. I mean, I lived well, if you know the town, you know where you can park and the cops won't bug you, and especially if you know them. But yeah, I've seen a lot of real life in the city. And I remember one night, it was Halloween, and I had a German Shepherd coyote, coy dog, when I worked for Bobby, for Dylan. You know, I carried a 41 Ruger on my gun rack because I didn't have a CPW, but I had permits and paperwork. You know, I mean, that's just the way it was. And I'm in the back of my camper, and I had to crawl through, and my dog is doing a slow roll growl, you know, warning growl. And I look out the window of the camper, and there's a guy wearing spandex leotards with a clown wig, and he was carrying a Thompson's 50 caliber submachine gun.
Holy shit!
It was Halloween night, but still, it was a replica or not. I'm going. We're gonna go up. We're gonna go surfing. So I think I left about 10 o'clock. Drove up to Malibu. There's a campground area. You know, put in my $8, whatever, in a little envelope, and camped out there for a couple of days. Went surfing in the morning, but don't play with guns. I had. You'll love this one. Yeah, I'm on my way to Malibu to go to Bob Dylan's house. I worked for him for 2 years, and on my gun rack is a holster and a 41 mag.
Wow.
I like the 41, a single action. And on the side of my wind wings, it said California Penal Code 602, posted, no trespassing, guard dog on duty. See, anal, no. Linear, yeah. OCD, whatever. Full compliance with the law, to the letter. So I'm rolling down the road about 3 in the afternoon, and I get pulled over by a highway patrol officer. Does a 180 and pulls me over. No big deal. Pull over, put on my flashers, turn the ignition off, roll the window down, put my hands at 12 o'clock, and leave them there. That's what you do. I did bail enforcement for a while too. So anyway, you learn the drill, right? You do it right. So the officer comes up, and I go, would you like to see my paperwork? And he says, no, I know who you are, I know who you work for, but I said, then why did you stop me? He says, I don't like seeing a weapon displayed. I says, I understand that, officer, but if you pulled me over and we're having this conversation and I showed you my paperwork and it didn't say CPW, then you'd be upset, and I'd be in non-compliance with the licensed authority that I was so given after going to LAPD weapons training, and I don't think I've done anything inappropriate. And she goes, well, I just don't like seeing a weapon displayed. I says, well, I understand that, but I'm not going to take it out of plain view. And just then another cruiser pulls up across the street on the Coast Highway, and on his radio, he's talking to her radio, and he goes, what is it? Now I'm late for work, and I'm going, officer, are you going to write me up, or what are you going to do? I'm late for work now. And she goes, well, what is it? And I go, okay, obviously you and your fellow officer have a bet. What do you think it is? And she goes, I think it's a 44 mag. And I go, what does your partner think it is? He thinks it's a 45. I said, well, if the bet was for lunch, you're going Dutch because you're both wrong. And you're a CHP officer. This is the Smith & Wesson 38 was didn't hit hard enough. So, that's why they came up with the 41 mag. 357 is, when you go blink, this thing goes pound. So you're going Dutch for lunch. And then, maybe 6 months later, I had to turn a trespasser. I had to arrest a trespasser at Bobby's, and one of those officers showed up to transport our,
Holy
uh,
crap.
our guest. And I go, "Hey, remember me, Mr. 41?" He goes, "Yeah." So I have a lot of respect for people that wear the shield. If you're good, if you raise your hand and you take an oath, then honor that oath. If I don't care who it is that you're working with, this is the way I roll. If someone is out of line or not doing it right, you know what? You can always get another job, or you just don't look the other way. If it's wrong, it's wrong. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, that's one
Go
of the
ahead.
things that troubles me is that, like in the state of North Carolina here, guys could go to school for 16 weeks and become a police officer. I'm like, I wish they would let these guys spend a lot more longer time in training.
Well, it's a tough. We've all gotten pulled over for traffic, or just because your car or you match a previous interchange. You don't know. They're straight up and honest, and I just wait until they explain, and then I always, when I see an officer, I always say, I hope you have a real boring shift. I hope your shift is so boring you're barely keeping awake. And then they'll do like you did, Mark. They'll nod and smile, and because they know what you're telling them. You're telling them that I would prefer that you have a boring shift and you don't have a lot of excitement. And you don't have to deal with something that's sad or unfortunate. And I always tell them, come home safe. And they never know that when you're leaving a home, if they're coming home. It's just the way it is.
I always hire ex-military, ex-cop, or a lot of times, like when I'm shooting in Dallas, I'll hire working police officers. But I grew up LA punk rock. So they always go, what were you in Black Ops? So what were you? I was in the service for 40 years. What were you? I was LA punk rock, and I'm their boss. And so they know how to treat me, but it's good for me because growing up, I hated cops. I hated them. And it's good to talk to them and get to know them, and I still think there's a lot of bad cops, but I work with a lot of good cops, and
Right.
I get it,
Oh yeah, no, if you're given authority in a situation and you take advantage of that for greed, ego, or misbehavior or foul play, then shame on you tremendously, and you do not have my respect, and you deserve to be stripped of your duties, and um, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, I've always been one to speak my mind.
I was working with Robert England, and he was telling me he's a surfer also. I mean, I surf. I live here in Huntington Beach, and I mean that's all I wanted to do. I work for Randy Lewis Surfboards. But if I paddled out at County Line and I saw Pluto and Freddy Krueger out on their boards, my mind would explode. Being a horror fan, I would love to see out on the board.
That would be awesome. I actually have I can't. I used to body surf Sereno Beach, take right by the Santa Monica, just north of the Santa Monica Pier, Station 9. I went to St. Martin Tours, which was, St. Monica's, didn't have a choice, right on Lincoln and Washington or Idaho. Anyway, it's just a few blocks. I was a long distance runner, so we would run down the beach and do sand sprints and run a couple miles there, and then I would just go body surfing. I was a scuba diver for years, all up and down the coast and the islands. Love it. Boogie board or body surfing, I'm pretty darn good at. I just never had to. I have short toes, so standing on a board was always a challenge for me. The board would slip out and catch me in the chin if I wasn't paying attention. But so I've ridden some pretty big waves in body surfing where you're from your waist out, you're hanging in the air, and you're right in the trap, and you're cutting. I was in a full wetsuit with flippers after doing some scuba diving at County Line by Bass Rock. There used to be a cafe there. And my dive partner and I were coming back to shore. We had crab and scallops and bass. And as we're coming into shore, we noticed that there was a family of otters catching waves. It was foggy. There's nobody on the
Wow.
beach. So we stripped all our gear down, put our game in the ice chest, and took off our tanks and weight belts, and just went back out in the water with full custom suits. And it was in the fall, and the waves were great. They're breaking really, really good. And actually, it was in a wave where I had an otter cut below me in the curl. Yeah, he'd be
Right.
he was right around there. And anyway, and he's on his back and looking right up at me like, "Hey, this is fun. You're a funny looking otter." But to spend time at the beach like that, when you're done, you can still feel the waves on your body. It's a real healthy experience. I've always loved the ocean. Smithsonian Institute has a monthly publication called Sea Secrets. I used to get that, by the mail. Loved the post office, by the way. It was before computers. And people would write in and say, "Hey, I was at the beach and I found this funny looking thing. I don't know what it is," and they would tell you what it was. I mean, science is really pretty cool. Yeah, I love the ocean.
Well, we appreciate you being so generous with your time and hanging out with us and the fans tonight. I didn't know if you had some last words for us, Michael, as we close out.
Sure, you bet. Well, thank you for the invite, Sergeant Horror, and Mark. Thank you for sharing. We're on the same page. Someday maybe we could work together. We'd have a lot of fun. Yeah, the last thought I have is, well, it's not the last thought. Oh my God, what's my last thought? No, I'll just say, life is too short to be around mean people. If you Well, I do a lot of. I've done a lot of public speaking to school groups and other organizations. So I'll leave you with one of my favorites. Let's see if I can do this right. Okay, it's kind of like this. Okay, like you got the thumb pointing up and you got the finger pointing away, and you got three. I'm doing this backwards, and these three fingers are pointing back toward you. So if you're pointing your finger at somebody, like, "Here's looking at you, kid." Okay, the thumb, now dig this, the thumb is pointing up, which means in my estimation of what it means is this: all inspiration comes from a source higher than ourselves. That's the thumb. Now you have your pointy fingers pointing toward, away from you. So you have inspiration that comes into you, and then you have action, which is your pointy finger. Okay, so you initiate something that you have constructed in your mind and in your will, and you put things out into the world. Okay, well, you might want that to be of high quality, because the other three fingers are pointing back toward you. So my point is, from what source do you draw your energy to make exchanges and interactions in the world? And then what you put out does have an effect, and it does have a responsibility that you own it. And once you put it out there, it doesn't come back. But at least threefold, there is a ripple in the pond, and it will come back. That's what the other three fingers represent. And so people say, how do we make things better? How can we, we need to, build more prisons or this or that. I mean, no, it's all bullshit. That's an industry. I've met a lot of people that do a lot of different things and have worked all over the world. And so if more people went to bed with a full tummy and could sleep with both eyes shut instead of one eye open and one ear askew because of impending danger, just the basics on a day-to-day basis, the basic actions of human beings, if those were raised, if we just raise that bar a little bit more, and if we could Boy, a day without war would be wonderful. I've been an anti-war activist my entire life, and I come from a family of military. My dad was at Hiroshima
Oh,
after the bomb. That's why I had birth defects.
oh my God.
He got pretty heavily radiated. You know, he was a neurologist. He went on a secret mission to say, "Hey, you know, what did the lab experiment do?" At one time, I had the pictures of vaporized humans against
Yeah.
walls. But it's like when I got to meet Bob Dylan, you know, I shared with him, you know, Masters of War is one of my favorite anti-war songs because what really freaking matters. So, you know, final thought, keep it simple, man. Keep it simple. Do no harm. I would say do no harm. And
That's,
try to think before you open the app.
that's a really good advice.
Hey, before I go, can I do this? Can I say a line and see if you can you know the other line?
Okay, go for it.
Okay. I got one gun, 2 bullets. We're sitting ducks.
Wait, what are you gonna do? What are we gonna do?
What are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Yeah.
Well, you take what does it say? You sit on your hands. Well, sit on your hands. Oh yeah, that's code for what? Sit on your hands with your thumb up your ass. Yeah, I mean, Pluto, Wes Craven, Peter Locke, man. I mean, well, we had a lot of fun. So
I loved it.
yeah, yeah, that was 16 millimeter. Just go out, no permits in the desert, and start rolling film. Oh, and speaking of danger, I mean, when Virginia Vincent got shot and she fell back into the couch, it readjusted the strap that had her squibs on.
Wow.
And so
Right.
she wasn't cleared for this. And so when the squib went off, it removed her nipple, ripped it right off her breast. She had to go right to the emergency room.
You got hurt a couple times on that show.
Well, there's a close-up shot when I'm supposed to, attack Brenda Suze Lanier, very talented singer, very still good friends to this day. So it was a real tight handheld shot. So we were trying to practice the motion of being down in the down position for focus point, and then pulling up as Mars is, pulling me off of her. And Eric, our DP, he was right behind me. So we got a little bit out of sync, and I wound up getting a metal, the side of the lens sunshade literally gouged the back of my head, and
Wow.
he got a black eye. But overall, it was the original Hills. I love that movie. Just guerrilla filmmaking.
And just real quick, we got to say it. Cuckoo's Nest, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, probably the greatest cast ever in any kind of film of unknown actors that go on to become brilliant actors, and you were part of that tribe. It's such a great film. It was your second film.
It was my second day. I was tapped Hartley at Harold Lloyd's estate to do Doc Savage. I got a 2-day guarantees, but I only worked 1 day. So my second day on a set was 2 weeks of rehearsal with camera for the major scenes for blocking, and I learned a lot. I didn't know a POV from a DVD, and after 128 days and getting a book on cinematography from Milos Forman and asking a zillion questions to my camera operator, and they were very helpful in explaining what an f-stop was. Over the years, I've gotten pretty good where if you're doing 2 or 3 or 4 focus pulls while you're moving in a scene, you have to hit those marks. And you take that tape and you put it right up to your eye to help them dial that in. It's a lot of math. Well, a lot of times when they do retakes, it's because of the timing and the focus. It's a sharp focus when you get to arrive at a certain intersection, and it's not always the performance. And right away, I started to realize the mechanics of of film, and I was fascinated with it. And I got so good to where I could tell my DP what their aperture was and how much soft focus in front and behind me, and I always try to do that when I have a chance. And we got a little break. I go, oh, here's your focus points, and you got 3 feet in front, and then when you go over here, it drops down to 1.5 feet. And I remember the first time I pulled that up, I was winging it, and the focus puller is looking at his notes, and they go, "Oh my God, you're spot on, right, right to the decimal point." I go, So I always try to do that just for fun, but it's a skill set, and if you can be aware of that along with everything else you're doing as an actor, because acting is just it'd be fantastic and eat, make sure there's no green jelly beans in the jar and everybody treats you like you're made out of gold. It's not how it is, at least not on the sets I've been on.
I don't understand. I know we got to go. Sorry, Sergeant Horror. Why aren't you directing?
Well, that's a whole different ball game. Directing would be fun. I've directed some small segments and scenes for videos here and there and little stuff for friends, but that's a whole separate career. I don't live in Los Angeles. It's a whole nother union. Maybe in another life, sure, but trying to keep busy as an actor is one thing. Trying to get your credentials to be a director, it's like having 2 lives at the same time. So I guess it answers your question, but I do appreciate. I kind of direct myself when I'm working, but I don't know. I don't know how to answer. I don't know.
Well, we appreciate you, and we thank everybody for tuning in. And we hope to see you real soon, Mr. Berryman. You have a great. Stay safe.
Stay safe, brothers. Good sharing. I appreciate it very much. Good questions, and yeah, it's okay to do the right thing. So wear a freaking mask.
Wear a mask. Y'all take care.
Thank you very much.
Michael Berryman, Richardson. We're out.
You're out. Adios.